Have you ever looked out the window of a school bus at night and wondered what would happen if it never stopped? Imagine this. The driver never speaks, the road never ends, and every empty seat slowly fills with someone who shouldn't be there. It all started on a cold Friday evening when 13-year-old Ethan stayed late at school to finish a science project. The sky turned dark much faster than he expected, and by the time he walked outside, the parking lot was almost empty. The only vehicle waiting was an old yellow school bus. Its paint was faded, its headlights were dim, and its engine made a deep, growling sound. Ethan thought it was strange because he had never seen this bus before, but the front display showed his neighborhood's route. The bus door slowly opened with a loud hiss. The driver wore a dark cap, pulled low over his face, hiding his eyes. Without saying a single word, he pointed toward the empty seats. Ethan stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind him. The bus started moving immediately. At first, everything felt normal. Streetlights passed by the windows, and the tires rolled over the road with a steady rhythm. But after a few minutes, Ethan noticed something was wrong. None of the familiar houses appeared outside. Instead, there were only dark forests, thick fog, and old, broken fences. He walked toward the driver and asked, "Excuse me, are we going the right way?" The driver stayed completely silent. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles looked almost white. Ethan returned to his seat, trying to stay calm. Suddenly, the bus stopped beside an abandoned bus stop where no one should have been waiting. The doors opened by themselves. A little girl wearing an old school uniform stepped inside. Her clothes were wet, as if she had been standing in the rain for years. She quietly sat near the back without looking at anyone. The bus started moving again. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. A few minutes later, the bus stopped again. This time an old boy with torn clothes climbed aboard. His face was pale, and he carried a dusty backpack with broken straps. He slowly walked down the aisle and sat beside the little girl without making a sound. Stop after stop. More children entered the bus. Some had muddy shoes. Some carried old books covered in dirt. One boy held a cracked football under his arm. None of them talked. None of them smiled. They simply stared straight ahead with empty eyes. Ethan's heart pounded faster. He realized something terrifying. These children looked like they had come from different years, even different decades. Their uniforms were all different, but every face looked cold and lifeless. Ethan pulled out his phone, hoping to call his parents. But there was no signal. The battery suddenly dropped from 80% to 1%, and then the screen went black. Outside, the fog became thicker until the windows showed nothing but darkness. Then Ethan heard a whisper behind him. "You shouldn't have boarded this bus." He turned around, but no one had moved. The whisper came again, louder this time. "No one ever gets off." Ethan stood up and rushed toward the emergency exit at the back. He pulled the red handle as hard as he could, but the door would not open. It was as if it had been welded shut. Panic filled his chest. He ran to the front and shouted at the driver, "Stop the bus, please!" The driver slowly turned his head. Ethan froze. There was no face under the cap, only complete darkness where a face should have been. Two tiny glowing eyes stared back at him from the endless black. The driver slowly lifted one finger and pointed toward an empty seat near the middle of the bus. Ethan looked down and saw something carved into the seat with deep scratches. It read, "Reserved." Suddenly, every child on the bus turned their heads toward Ethan at the exact same moment. Their movements were slow and unnatural. Their empty eyes locked onto him. Then all of them smiled. Their smiles stretched far too wide, revealing dark, empty mouths. The lights inside the bus began flickering. The engine roared louder and louder until it sounded like thunder. Ethan closed his eyes and whispered that this couldn't be real. When he opened them again, every child had disappeared. The seats were empty. The bus had stopped in front of his house. The door opened. Ethan jumped off the bus without looking back and ran inside as fast as he could. Breathing heavily, he looked out the living room window, expecting to see the old bus driving away. But the street was completely empty. The bus had vanished without making a sound. The next morning, Ethan searched online for information about the strange bus. After hours of searching, he found an old newspaper article from more than 50 years ago. It showed the exact same yellow school bus. According to the report, the bus had crashed on a lonely road during a storm. The driver and every student on board had disappeared. No bodies were ever found. Ethan felt his blood turn cold when he noticed one final detail in the old black and white photograph. Sitting in the very last row was one empty seat, waiting. That night, just before midnight, Ethan heard the distant sound of a school bus engine outside his bedroom window. Then came the familiar hiss of the folding doors opening. He slowly pulled back the curtain and saw the same old yellow bus parked in front of his house. The driver was waiting, and this time there was one more empty seat than before. If you enjoyed this scary story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for more horror stories every week.